All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last workshop of the day. Hope you guys are keeping well. So this workshop is titled Introduction to Chrome Web Extensions, and we'll be joined by Jason and Shafin from CS Hub. All right. So without further ado, let's have them on board the platform. Welcome, Jason and Shafin. How are you guys?
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
I'm good.
Doing all right.
All right. So could you give us a quick rundown of what the viewers might expect from this workshop?
Yeah, so today we'll be talking about Chrome extensions, what they are, some key components you need to develop Chrome extensions, and yeah, how to build them.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. All right. I'll let you guys get to it. Good luck, guys.
Okay. Thank
Appreciate it.
you,
Thank you.
John.
All right, everybody. So I'll share my screen. Okay. Everybody see my screen? Or Shafin, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can
Okay.
see.
Nice. Yeah, so just as John said earlier, my name is Jason Yang. I'm currently in my 5th year at York University studying computer science. I've got a decent amount of experience building Chrome web extensions from my previous internship. So I feel like it's a great framework to kind of learn, especially for beginners, and it's a super useful tool for whenever you want to supplement or even have a cool project on your resume. So I won't be hosting this workshop by myself. I'll also be hosting this with my colleague, Shafin.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. So I'm Shafin Mahmud, a second-year undergraduate student majoring in the computer science program at York University. I'm also the technical director of CS Hub. I hope you guys will enjoy this workshop today. And let's get back to Jason.
All right, so let's get started, guys. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we need to actually figure out what are Chrome extensions, right? We've heard the word extensions passed around a lot, but what does it actually mean and how do we build one? What are its uses and popular examples? Well, what can we do with a Chrome extension? Just as I said earlier, it's kind of like a framework, so we need to figure out what things that we can use it for, and as well as some popular examples that you guys might recognize as well. And because a Chrome extension is a framework, there are some key components that we can't miss. One of which would be a manifest file, as well as we're going to talk about how to deploy one. We also are going to talk about message passing. And message passing is relevant because the Chrome extension has different scripts. We want to consider these different scripts as different environments. So we'll be talking a little bit about this later on in the presentation. I'll pass it back to Shafin.
Okay. So what are Chrome extensions? Extensions are small software programs that customize the browsing experience. How does it do that? By changing functionality and behavior of a web page or an extension. Okay. Then the productivity tools. We have web page content enrichment, which adds structure to content. And then we have information aggregation, which is collecting data from various sources. And finally, we can make fun, and we can also play games with extension. Isn't that cool? Okay, so let's get back to Jason again.
All right, so what are its uses and popular examples? Well, really, you can do anything with a Chrome extension, or at least anything that the extension framework allows. So keep in mind that when you're building a Chrome extension or any sort of extension for any browser, the browser itself is kind of like a virtual machine, right? The browser will have some sort of permissions or some sort of requirements that you need to maintain whenever you're building an extension. So to give you an example of this, certain APIs aren't actually allowed on Chrome, but they might be allowed on Mozilla, right? So if I was building an extension, I need to make sure that I'm using prerequisites that are specific to either Mozilla or specific to Chrome, right? And some popular examples of some Chrome extensions are LastPass. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with LastPass, but it holds password information for different sites. That password information can be email addresses, a master password, multiple passwords. It even allows you, as we can see in that screenshot on the right, to create an account as well as functionality in case you forgot your password. Another such popular example would be Adblock. So Adblock does a bunch of things, right? It blocks ads, it blocks cookies, and other tracking things whenever you visit different websites. we also have a weather app. So this weather app isn't really a super popular one. Well, maybe after this presentation, but this is one that Shafin and I built together, and we'll be displaying a little bit later on in the presentation. So as you can see, all three of these Chrome extensions or extensions are vastly different, right? LastPass holds user information. Adblock gives your browser more functionality in blocking ads, and the weather app displays you information that is fetched from a third-party API. Back to Shafin.
Okay, so the first two major key components. First comes manifest file. This is the main game changer of an web extension. If we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it will be a web page, simple web page. But when we have this manifest file, this becomes a web extension. So what is this? A special file containing information about the extension. And then comes HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Jason, can you move to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, so what is HTML? It's hypertext markup language. What it does, it defines the structure of the web page. Okay, so you can say it's the building block of a web page. Okay, then comes CSS, which is cascading style sheet, and you have been to web pages, right? You have seen web pages have like very good looking web pages. So everything that makes the website or extension good looking is this CSS file. Okay. Then lastly is JavaScript, which defines the behavior of a web page or a web extension. So like how you interact with extension, when you click a button, what happens, and those things, right? Okay, let's get back to Jason.
Okay. Just kind of as I said earlier, we also have different Chrome extension environments, right? So keep in mind, again, that the Chrome extension is a framework, right? Now, there are three different environments within a Chrome extension or an extension of any kind that we need to consider whenever we're building one of which would be a pop-up script. So the pop-up script is responsible for everything that happens in the pop-up. Well, you might be asking, what is a pop-up? So if you've ever worked with a Chrome extension or any kind of extension, you know that whenever you click on Adblock, a small window is going to appear, and anything within that window, we can define the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, just as Shafin said earlier, right? And I'll give you guys a demonstration when we get to the demo portion of our presentation. We also have the content script. Now that is responsible for the DOM in the current active web page. So what is the DOM? That's the document object module. All right. So that is essentially everything on a web page that we can control, right? So that could be HTML, that could be CSS. We can also input or inject a JavaScript so that we can use that to automatically fill out forms or maybe manipulate things on the website, etc. Right? We also have our background script. Now the background script is responsible for the window. So what is the window? Well, whenever you click on Chrome, whenever you click on Safari, whenever you click on Mozilla Firefox, that'll open up a window, right? So the background script can control things in that window. One of such functionalities could be closing or opening tabs, searching all the tabs for a specific URL. This also means that whenever you close a web page or whenever you close a tab, you can store information within the background script in a sort of local storage. And you can use that information later on when you're on a different web page, when you're on a different pop-up, etc. Right? The fourth really big key component of Chrome extensions or extensions in general are message passing. So just as I said earlier, Chrome extensions exist in different environments, right? You have the background script responsible for a window. You have the content script responsible for a web page. You have a pop-up script that's responsible for the pop-up whenever you open one. So message passing is essentially a way for us to communicate between each script, right? Now you might be thinking, well, when are we going to use this message passing, right? Why aren't we allowed to essentially communicate without this message passing? So there's two reasons. One of such is for security reasons. So let's say you have a malware pop-up script. Now, malware pop-up script, if it had access to the content script, if it had access to the background script, then it could exist in the background and essentially take your information without any sort of additional level of security. So message passing is a way for us to abstract away from that and kind of control each environment individually. Message passing is also super important to allow us to kind of do that communication, right? So let's say you want something to happen on your current web page, right? You can click a button on the pop-up script, and this will affect the current web page, and vice versa. Let's say you have a web page and you want something on the web page to be affected in your pop-up, just like LastPass does with passwords. So what we can do is we can click a button on the content, or we can click a button on the web page, and it'll affect the pop-up script through message passing. And I'll show you guys a demonstration on how to use message passing as well as how to implement it later on in the presentation. All right. So now what we'll be doing is we'll be demoing a Chrome extension that Shafin and I built together, as well as explaining the different components involved.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. So first we have this manifest JSON file. As I said earlier, this is the game changer, which makes this extension rather than a website or a web page. Okay. So what we have over here, we have manifest version. We have over here it's 2. Like last month it got updated to 3. So you can look for that also over here. If you go to this website, Chrome developer, then you can find over here extension under this. You can find manifest version 3, manifest version 2, and you can go through all these details. For example, you can find what are extensions and what things are needed. So I have listed down the most important items that you should have in your extension. For example, this is the version. Then we have the name, which is we have our project name is weather, so we have it over here. And then we have the version, the description, and this is very important, the browser action. What it does, see over here, this is our extension. You see this icon over here, it's this one. And whatever would be happening in this extension is happening through this HTML. It's linking to this HTML file. Then we have permission, which is given tabs. So it got permission of like using the tabs. And then we have this content security policy. You don't have to learn this. You can, as I said, you can find all this over here. It's given in the documentation. I just listed out the most important ones. So let's move to HTML files. Okay, first we have this doc type HTML, which defines that this page is an HTML5 page rather than a normal HTML, which is the HTML5 is the latest one. And then we have the root of HTML. This is the root. Then comes head. Inside head, we have viewport, title, then link, script. I don't have script over here, rather I have script over here. Why is that? Because this when we have script above the closing tag of body, what it does is it makes the web page load faster, and also prevents many types of errors. So it's a good idea to keep script over here, but you can also include it just below over here. You can include it and it should work fine. Okay, next comes body. Let me show you. So inside body, we have this header. So as you can see, the header contains this logo and this h1 tag containing weather. And then we have this main section which contains 2 inputs. One is we have to type something, and another is a submit button. And you might be wondering, well, I got this input and then image and this h1 tag, but what are all? You will get to know what are all this when I move to the JavaScript file. Okay, so let me show you a quick hack if you don't know it already. So if you are using VS Code, you can get the boilerplate directly when if you write exclamation mark and then press enter, you can get the boilerplate. That's the basic boilerplate you need. And then I can quickly show you some tricks that you can use for HTML. For example, if you write div and dot and then for example a header and press tab, see what happens. It creates a div with a class header. And for example, I want it with ID. All right, ID header tab. See, it creates an ID. For example, I want an image tab. It creates image tag. So there are many hacks for of using, like many benefits of using VS Code. Lastly, I will show this. For example, I want some blank, I want random text. I don't want to copy it from somewhere. I can do it like this. I can write lorem and tab. See, it generates some random text. I can also do something like this. For example, uh, lorem times 10 tab. See, so many text. So these are some hacks you can use while using HTML. Okay, let's move on to CSS. So at first we have this import URL statement, which imports this font. You can find this in Google font. If you Google it, that Google font, you will find a website over there. You can find many types of different fonts that are not available as default. So you can import those. Then I have a style for the body, and our major part is not describing CSS and stuff. So I won't be going through this because display text and all this stuff needs brief discussion. Then that's pretty much about CSS. And finally, we have this JavaScript file. Okay, so as I was saying, in HTML file, you saw all this which are not being used. You can see them over here. So what are they doing? So as Jason said, we can use JavaScript to get the elements of HTML using DOM, document object model. Okay, so over here, see what I'm doing at first. I'm getting this, for example, this input, input, uh, this input. I'm getting this input using this class. I gave this a class input text, and I'm getting it over here. Then similarly, I'm getting all the, for example, this name, then temp. I'm getting them over here. And then once I get them, what I will do? What's the use? I'm using it over here. I will show you. So I have this button over here. When I click this, what happens? This function runs. This function runs, and this fetches some data from our API. We are using this weather API. I can show you this API over here. This is the API we are using. So once you sign up for your account, you will come to this place which says interactive API Explorer. You will get your API key. You can use this key. For example, you can example instead of Toronto, let me write Halifax and then show response. See, it gives a body. This body is accessed by this this is fetched from this link, and then the response is sent over here. We get the response over here, and the data we collected are over here. So how are we accessing this name data? So what is this name data? You can see this name Halifax. It's this. It will contain this string Halifax. How it does that? See, this is one object. This from here till here. This is one object, and inside there is another object. This is another object. So to get access to this key, I need to first get this key to get this value, and I then need to get this key to get this value. And then I can get the string Halifax. Then I'm using this string with inner HTML. So for example, which one was that? Name text, right? Name text is hash name. Hash name. This is the one. You see, it's blank, right? So what inner HTML does is it fills with this text, right? So, um, where was I? Oh, okay. So you can see plus name data. So it gets data from here, like for example, Halifax, and then it concatenates the string together. So that's pretty much it. And then we have, if you put any, like for example, let me show you. So if you put something like this, okay, it shows wrong city name, please try again. And if you put in like Halifax, what happens? It shows the location, which is by this. Then it shows the temperature, which is by this. And then it shows the weather condition, which is by, no, it shows the speed over here. And this is the condition, weather condition. Okay, and that's most of it. That's how it's working. And now Jason will show you how the background script and content script, all those works. I hope you enjoyed this. Now let's get back to Jason.
All right. Now, before we move on, does anybody have any questions for Shafin for the front end portion of this Chrome extension?
Yes. Feel free to ask any questions you have.
Looks like there aren't any just yet, but I'll let you know. I'll let you guys know if they are.
Sounds good. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. All right. So we have some basic functionality to our weather app, right? We have the location that we're currently located. We have the associated kind of weather or temperature, as well as like a little diagram for the current weather, as well as the wind speed, right? Now let's try and advance our Chrome extension a little bit more by adding some more functionality when it comes to kind of the back end, right? So this is where we'll be talking about our message passing and kind of the different Chrome extension environments that we'll be working with, all right? So let's come up with a use case. The first use case is, let's say we have a weather app, right? And we want more and more people to use the weather app, okay? But we have a big competitor, and that competitor would be the weather network, right? So if you can see here, the weather network has the temperature, has the wind speed, has all this additional information. Well, you know what? Let's take our competitor down a notch by trying to blank out the information that we provide, right? And also try and collect the information that we don't provide from this web page, okay? So then what do we need to do, right? So in our pop-up HTML, Shafin kind of went over this as well, but we've implemented two extra buttons, one called blank out, collect, and display, right? And these will be what will trigger our content script and our pop-up script to work, right? We also have some paragraph elements so that we can display this information later on. All right, so if we go to the pop-up.js, we can see that we are referencing those elements in the popup.html using document.query selector. So remember, the popup.js, as we've defined in the manifest, is going to be referencing this pop-up window, okay? All right, so we've defined 3 buttons. Now we want to reference those 3 buttons, right? So we have one called blank button, we have one called collect button, we have one called display button, as you can see here on the right, all right? And then below, well, we need some way for us to kind of know when those buttons are clicked, right? So here we have our event listeners, and these event listeners are going to be listening for a click. When they listen for that click, a function, these 2 double parentheses here, is going to be run so that we are notified whenever those buttons are clicked, all right? So when that button is clicked, we have a function called blank run. Now this is where our message passing comes into play. All right. So we want something to happen on the content script. We want these -3, -7, and WinGust values to turn to 0, right? Because we're trying to blank them out. So then what we're going to do is we need to send a message to the content script so that the content script can implement a function where it'll turn those values to 0. So what we do here is we have our function called blank. And what blank is going to do is it's going to take the current window that we're currently on, so this window, it's going to take the current active tab that we're on as well, and we're going to send that content script a message, as you can see here, chrome.tabs.send message. What we're going to do is we're going to send it the active tab ID. So tabs will have their own properties such as name, ID, etc. And we're going to send it a message called blank out info. Now let's go into our content script to see what is receiving that message. So if you can see here, we have something called chrome.runtime.onMessage.addListener, right? So just like a telephone call, whenever you make a call, whenever you send a text, somebody needs to be able to respond or needs to be able to receive that text before they can respond to you. Now that same example applies here. We have an add listener, and that listener is going to be listening for a specific message in order to run a function on this web page. So remember again, the content script is going to be responsible for the DOM on the current active web page tab. All right. So if you can see here, we have that same message that we've sent out, blank_out_info. What we're going to do is we're going to run a function called blank out info. And what that is going to do is, just like I said earlier, we're going to be referencing the DOM on the web page. We're going to take the temperature, we're going to take the wind speed, and we're going to take the feels like temperature on this current web page. So that'll be -3, -7, and wind gust. And we're going to set those values to 0. All right, so let's give that a try. Oh, great. Blank out set those 3 values to 0. We've done our job. We've taken the weather network down a peg, and we've also demonstrated the message sending as well as the different Chrome extension environments. All right, now we have another problem. The weather network also collects and displays information that we currently don't have access to in our third-party API. So what do we want to do with that information? We want to collect that information, right? So let's go back to our popup.js. And again, remember the popup.js is going to be responsible for referencing this pop-up window. So what we want to do is we want to define our collect button. Now what our collect button is going to do is it's going to collect the information that we don't have currently stored. So I think the most important information is humidity, because you can have a really hot summer and you want to know how hot it is outside, right? Humidity is a big factor in that. Let's say we also want visibility. When I'm driving, I want to know how far out I can actually see. And the sunrise and sunset. Let's say it's Valentine's Day, you want to take your significant other to go watch the sunrise or the sunset. We want to have that information available on our weather app, right? So what we've done is we've defined a reference to that collect button. We've also defined a reference to a display button. All right. Now going back to our event listeners, we're going to be listening for a click to happen on those 2 buttons. All right. As you can see here, collect button and the display button. Now, whenever the collect button is clicked, we're going to run a collect function. And the collect function is going to run the same functionality as our blank function. What that's going to do is it's going to take the current active tab in the current window. So we've defined current window is true, current active tab is true, and we've referenced the first element of that array. We're going to send a message to the background script. All right. Now that message is going to be collect and display. So again, remember the content script is responsible for the web page. So the content script is going to take that message using our listener here. We're going to run a function called collect sunrise. And what collect sunrise is going to do is it's going to take the reference to those HTML elements inside the DOM of this web page, and we're going to set it in chrome.storage.local. Now, what chrome.storage.local is kind of like a rudimentary way for us to store information in Chrome's native kind of small database, right? So that kind of references back to the background script. Now, whenever you exit out of a tab, this storage is still going to be available for whenever you want to be able to use it. Excuse me. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set that information using our keys here, sunrise, sunset, visibility, humidity, right? And remember, we just want the inner HTML. So we just want these actual values from the web page, right? What we're going to do is we're going to console.log it. So this leads me to another really important point. Well, you see a lot of console.logs here, which is a great way for us to debug Chrome extensions, but how are we supposed to access this console? All right. So let's say we click on the inspect button here. What is going to pop up is a DevTools window that'll show us the HTML as well as the console for our pop-up window. Now, this is important whenever we want to, let's say you want to debug our message passing. You want to make sure your function is running. Anything that's going to happen in the pop-up window, JavaScript-wise, is going to appear here, right? And the same thing for the content script. Well, what if I want to look at the content script? What if I want to look at the web page and what's going on in my content script? Well, what you can do is you can click inspect on the web page. Give it a second. My computer is kind of slow. And what that is going to show you is that is going to show you the DOM of the current web page that you're on, as well as a console that allows us to see what's going on in our content script. As you can see here, content script JS12, we are on the content script, as well as other information relating to the website. So another thing to kind of add on to that is Shafin yesterday asked a great question, which is, well, how do I tell the difference between my content script and the current web page's API? Well, if you can see here, there's kind of like a name beside each one of these logs. And all you have to do is just cross-reference these names against your content script in VSC or whatever code editor you're going to be using, right? Okay, so back to my original point, we've set those 4 pieces of information that we have right now on the web page. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our web page, we want to go back to our Chrome extension. We want to go back to that window with Toronto's information. We want to collect that information. Okay, as you can see here, all that information we collected pops up. And then we also want to display that information. Voila, we have our sunrise, which is set from the weather network. We have our sunset from the weather network. We have our visibility and humidity all from the weather network. All right. And there's plenty of other things we can do. Oh,
sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that you can see those errors. I guess the audience might be like shocked that why is there so many errors. So if you could explain why is there the errors.
That's a really good point. So keep in mind, as you're running your own content script, right, it's kind of clashing with what's going on in the web page, right? So the web page, the weather network has a bunch of work that it needs to do to display all this information. The weather network is going to be calling a bunch of APIs. It's going to be having its own functionality, and all of that is also going to be shown alongside your content script information. So don't be alarmed. All these errors are part of the web page to whatever web page you go to. You go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're all going to have the same kind of errors. And you just kind of have to sift through the differences between the two. Does that answer your question, Shafin?
Yes, perfect.
Nice. Okay, so keep in mind, these are very rudimentary examples. There's plenty of things you can do. Just as you can collect information from the web page, you can also inject information into the web page or a form if you so desire. And that's my demonstration. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much,
Uh,
Jason and Shafin. It was a fantastic workshop. I'm glad we had you guys over. I'm sure people are going to be watching this video over and over, and just to go, use it as a resource to make their own Chrome web extensions.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much, John, for giving us the opportunity to host this workshop.
No problem. Anytime, guys. All right, that's it for the workshops today. So please tune in tomorrow at 4 o'clock, where we will begin our first day 3 workshop with Authentic Me by BMO. That's a recruitment session from with a representative from BMO. And you can come and ask any questions regarding any sort of tips and questions on how to approach an interview at a company. All right. So that'll wrap it up for day 3, guys. Thank you so much again, Jason and Shafin. You guys are fantastic. We hope to see you guys again next time.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks again, John.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
Bye.
guys.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.